Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Livelong Podcast, where we discuss how to live a longer and better life. So, my name is Erin Hunter, and I am the senior editor here at Livelong Media. Today, we are joined by the founder of Modrn Med, the host of the Modrn Wellness Podcast, and a practitioner of longevity and preventative medicine, Dr. Mary Pardee. I met Dr. Pardee about a month ago or 2 months ago, and I can honestly say she is one of the most grounded voices in the space. And I'm also excited to announce that she's joining us in April at our inaugural Livelong Women's Health Summit. So if you haven't already gotten a ticket for that and you'd love to see her among many other amazing speakers like Jane Fonda, the actress, and Dr. Stacy Sims, head over to livelongmedia.com/women's health summit. So, without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Mary.
Thank you, Erin. It's great to be here. Good to see you.
It's so good to see you again. I just love your perspective, and I loved going through your Instagram because you just call out so much nonsense, and you're just like, "Nope, this is wrong. Everyone's telling you this. I'm gonna tell you that's incorrect." So, I actually think I would love if you could just start with setting the record straight and debunking one of the most common longevity or anti-aging myths that people and patients come to you with.
Okay, well, one of the ones that I see all the time is people will come in and they'll be like, okay, I got this biological age test done. It says I'm 20 years younger than I actually am, so I'm clearly doing everything right. And then I look at their lab work and they're pre-diabetic and they have increased central adiposity, like fat around the midsection, visceral adipose tissue. So the point is that these biological age tests are complete trash. So these are the ones I'm talking about are the ones that you can purchase as a consumer. I'm not talking about like research that's happening in the space. But if you can purchase it and it's telling you what your biological age is versus your chronological age, it's a complete waste of money. And most of them are not reproducible. My friend, Dr. Matt Caberline, did a test where he ordered like 5 from 5 different companies and repeated them. And like they were all over the place. But they really have very little merit to them and are just a money grab in my mind where they're telling you something and then they're saying, oh, and then take our supplement to increase your lifespan further. And then they're selling you not just the test, but they're selling you the supplement that goes along with it. So that's one of the biggest ones, but I could go on and on. There's so much snake oil in this space. And that's why I think it's even more important to have more voices of reason that are evidence-based to help save people time, money, anxiety, and stress. I have people that come in that are so stressed about their health routine, and I'm like, that's not how we're gonna live a longer, healthier life.
And there's also a lot of stress to be perfect too. And it's this idea that they probably come to you thinking, but I do everything right and I'm so disciplined and diligent and everything has to be to the T or else.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
how do
I've
you
struggled with perfectionism in my own life, so I totally get this from the other side too. But this brings in the topic of mental health, which should be a cornerstone of the longevity talk, because we know that your mental health greatly affects your physical health, both directly and indirectly. One of the quotes that I had the weekend that we were together is that your relationships and whether or not you feel lonely or supported by community is one of the biggest drivers for your actual health. And so you can imagine that if we are so hyper focused and consumed by all the minutia of our health, sometimes it can be driving us down the wrong way. So I'm always screening for, do I see hypervigilance in people, meaning that they're so anxious about their health that they almost fall into a category of orthorexia, which is like obsession around health and healthy behaviors. Because we really want to try to have a balanced approach where we're doing all the things that we can from a prevention standpoint and we're not ignoring our health, but we are also having a really healthy relationship with our physical health, all of our health habits, and also a good relationship with the idea of death too, which has to come into the longevity discussion.
So, wow, let's touch on that because I think one of the myths, and maybe I'm wrong, is that, oh, the technology is going fast enough where we'll live to 150, 160, 175. Can you touch on that and the the myth around trying to like avoid death and do everything right as a way to live a good life, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, when I think of longevity, I don't think of living to 150. So that's not the lens that I'm looking through. When I think of longevity, I'm thinking about more of a health span centered conversation where, in my mind, having a successful health span is being able to hike with my friends in my 70s and 80s, being able to still lift weights into my 80s, being able to pick up my grandchildren in later life, being able to hold a job throughout my 70s, 80s, and into my 90s, right? Where I have like the mental acuity to actually show up and function the way that I want. I know that there's another group of people who are trying to live to 150, and to date, the evidence that we have and the technology that we have right now doesn't support that really as something that we have access to. And I just don't know if it's the right question to even be asking in the longevity space. Sure, we can likely add a few years to somebody's life, but I think the focus should be quality years versus just number of years that we have. I just also think that there's a complete hallucination of where we are in medicine, where some people think we're way ahead of where we are. So there's very interesting things that are up and coming, and I'm so fascinated to see how they unfold. But we're not in the place that we're going to be living to like 170 years old in our lifetime.
And, I think that your perspective is definitely, from what I'm hearing, it's based on what we know now. And it's all the science we have now. It's everything compiled up now. And so it's a really interesting gray space too, where things are potentially working that could help, but there's also like not a lot of evidence. So, can we touch on fact versus fiction when it comes to, let's say, longevity supplements like potentially metformin, which is a diabetes drug that people think might help us live longer? And then the other big ones are rapamycin and NAD. So, if really quickly, can we just go into those guys and the gray area and just figure out, okay, what's real? What do we not know yet?
Yeah, so this is an interesting conversation, and there's still things that are unfolding here. So the one that you just said that's more interesting to me is rapamycin. So when we look at whether a therapeutic is going to extend our lifespan or not, we look at a few different things, but one of the things we look for is, has it extended the lifespan of many different species before humans? And so with rapamycin, we see that it has extended the lifespan of different species, including worms, mice, so not just one species. So when you see something that's able to extend multiple lifespans or multiple species lifespans, it's a better indicator that it may actually work in humans as well. And so that's a very interesting one. Rapamycin is currently already being used in humans, but it's being used for people that undergo transplants. And so in terms of the longevity space, it's newer there. We don't know a lot about rapamycin in longevity. We're in the beginning stages of it, but there's ongoing clinical trials that make it very interesting and like one of the leading kind of pharmaceuticals in that space, but we still don't know yet. So like it's still unproven in terms of, does it help humans actually live longer, healthier lives? We don't have like a discrete answer to that at this time. Metformin, also a medication, requires a prescription from a doctor. It's used to prevent and treat diabetes, also used for like PCOS and other insulin resistant conditions, and can be a really helpful therapeutic there. Again, don't think that there's evidence that it's going to extend your lifespan in non-diabetic patients. And so sometimes people are saying, oh, it's helping these diabetic patients live longer or reduce chronic disease. But if you don't have insulin resistance or diabetes, we're not seeing the same effects for that population. And then the other one you mentioned is a supplement. So NAD, which is a supplement, just how NAD kind of works in the body is it's working at a mitochondrial level for energy production. This is one of those bases that I think is interesting. I think it's super interesting and is completely unproven at this point. And there's also some flaws in the line of thinking that are there. NAD is a very large molecule, so taking it orally and expecting it to be absorbed and actually get into the mitochondria effectively is a question mark. We think there may be transporters now. But one thing that I tell people is that if anything, if you want to go down the NAD route, NR, which is a precursor to NAD, has better research, but it only has better research for certain conditions. So for the general healthy person, right now, I don't think there's enough evidence to warrant taking any of those supplements. And I really suggest not doing NAD IVs because these things are costing people like $600, $700, $1,000 a pop. And no evidence to support it's actually going to help you live a longer, healthier life. Potential of actually creating an imbalance in terms of pH in the body and maybe even damaging some tissue and stuff like that. So that one for me is a hard no. And I've had patients tell me they're doing it. I'm like, save that money, spend it on a personal trainer. And that swap right there, doing NAD IVs versus getting stronger, adding muscle to your body. I can almost definitively say you're going to get more bang for your buck putting muscle on if you need to put muscle on than wasting it on an NAD IV.
Wow. Okay, so there's just there's a lot of like eh, I feel like Larry David. And
The
so
longevity space in general, there's a lot of we're just in
well,
early stages, and it doesn't mean that I'm not like excited to keep reading about the research. And yeah, maybe we find something that, there's something really cool that we discover and you can pair it with something. But that's like, there's so much what ifs and like maybe and in the future there. And I really think we need to be grounded in reality right now. And because it's one thing if you come to me and your muscle mass is perfect and you don't have any visceral adipose tissue on your body and you're lifting weights 3 times a week and your cardiorespiratory fitness level is in the 80th percentile for your age and gender and you're eating 30 grams of fiber per day and you're hitting your protein goals. And I have yet to really meet that many people that fall into that bucket. And so people are missing the 98% that we know for sure is going to make you healthier. And they're focusing on like the 2% that has this big question mark around it and potential risks associated with it.
yeah, but it's so like exciting, it's the novelty. I want you want the novelty because it's the thing that attracts you. But even the 98%, that's the part that when I first met you, that was the most unbelievable thing was I got a DEXA scan and I'm in the lowest 2% bone density of anyone my age. And I'm just thinking, holy poo. Like I keep writing about strength training. Everyone keeps hearing strength training, but it's like when you see it, then you realize, oh, okay, it is like the things you do on a daily basis. Maybe I should do a little less cardio and a little more like just anything above 3 pounds, maybe is going to be helpful for me. And so I think something I would love if you could give people just the quick facts about tangibly, like what are the tangible facts of, all right, if we're lumping into diet, fitness, and stress management, what can people take away right now that you would be so happy if you saw them incorporating more of into their life?
Yeah, so exercise is the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to longevity that people aren't fully taking advantage of, in my opinion. And people think it's boring. Like exercise science is so fascinating. If I like rattled off a bunch of facts, like the biggest bang for your buck you can really get is exercising to the fullest in terms of reducing the risk for dementia, cancers, heart disease. I mean, every major cause of death it's tied to reductions with. And the biggest mistake I see people make in the exercise space is they're exercising, but they're kind of just like doing whatever. So they're going to Pilates on Monday, and then they're going to a HIIT class, and then they're doing like a booty builder class, and then they're doing yoga. And it's like, okay, great. Any movement is wonderful. So you've already like checked off the first box. But if you want to actually get serious from a prevention and a longevity standpoint, I highly recommend a more structured plan to your exercise. And what this could look like is doing 2 to 3 days of strength training where you are tracking and having similar workouts on all of those days and just repeating it week after week for like an 8 week cycle. So this is a typical progressive overloading, like periodization plan. So if you're working out on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, every Monday you're doing the same exercises. Every Wednesday you're doing the same exercises. Every Friday you're doing the same exercises. But every week you're adding either weights or repetitions there. So it's a guaranteed foolproof way to add muscle and strength versus kind of just jumping all around and trying different things and keeping yourself occupied. So that's one of the biggest pivots that I help people make is to really have a more structured exercise plan. Adding cardiorespiratory, so like your cardiovascular training in is essential as well, low intensity and high intensity ideally. And we see reductions in risk for all-cause death with higher heart and lung fitness levels there too.
And so is that even just like a brisk walk? Does that count as cardio?
Yeah, so ideally moderate physical activity from cardio is going to be like a heart rate of around 70-ish% of your max heart rate. You can go a little bit lower than that. So not a super slow walk, but if you did like a hike with an incline and walking, absolutely. We want you to be kind of out of breath during it so that if you were on the phone with somebody, they would know that you're actually exercising and not just sitting there. So that's kind of a good litmus test for your heart rate. And then ideally, if you're able to, getting that heart rate up to pushing it to the max, at least once a week can be really effective as well. But if somebody is sedentary and they come to see me, I'm not going to tell them to do all of that. We're going to say, okay, what's one thing we can start with right now? Okay, we did that. What's the second thing we can add in? You want to go low and slow because you want to make changes that are lasting changes. Exercising for 2 weeks at full intensity versus exercising for the rest of your life at something that's attainable. The exercise for the rest of your life is what's going to actually move the needle.
Wow. And then, so the people are coming in, you're meeting them where they're at, we're doing that. Diet wise, is fiber the key? You mentioned fiber earlier, 30 grams. Is that, I don't know if we want to call it the magic, but what's the magic of just a diet where, okay, it's good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. What's good enough in terms of science?
Yeah, so one of the first things you should be thinking about with diet is are you eating the right amount of calories for you? And this may get some pushback to it, but body composition optimization, meaning making sure you're not over fat, have too much adiposity, or under muscled is really important. And so just how much energy are you consuming? Are you consuming too many calories, too few calories? That's the first place I start with somebody. What's your energy balance look like? After that, optimizing for tons of fruit and vegetables in terms of, like you want 25 to 35 grams of fiber, depending on men or women. And then enough protein for your body too. And ideally, like I kind of start people around 1.4 grams per kilogram, maybe up to 1.8 grams per kilogram of protein per body weight, depending on if you're maintaining and maybe putting on a little bit of muscle versus I use the 1.8 grams per kilogram for people who are looking to lose weight because it's more satiating for them. So if you focus on just the things I said there, you're like 95% of the way there with diet. We don't have to go crazy with the other things. Reducing saturated fat can reduce cardiovascular risk markers like apolipoprotein B. So we can fine tune from there, but we don't have to overcomplicate diet.
That's great. And I know you have to go see more patients coming up now. So one thing I just wanted to ask you before we head out is what is something you have changed your mind about when it comes to longevity and anti-aging?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there's a couple of things on that list. One thing that comes to mind is cholesterol. So if you asked me in my 20s before I went to medical school, I was hearing all this stuff about cholesterol that you hear on social media, like um, people with the highest cholesterol levels live the longest, or taking statins causes dementia. And I think I was really naive at the time and believed a lot of those people. And it wasn't until after I went to medical school, did my own research, really dug into the research that we have. The research that we have is abundantly clear that your LDL cholesterol levels or apolipoprotein B 100% matter as your risk factor for cardiovascular disease. So that's one that I did not know about before when I was younger. I've completely changed my mind about. And it's actually one of the biggest things I talk to my patients about at this point in terms of risk reduction for heart disease.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, and that could be whether it's genetic or whether it's developed. It's just tackling that as soon as possible, and that could reduce risk for a long time to come.
100%. Yeah.
Booyah. Thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure to see you again, and I'm so excited to see you at our event, honestly.
I'm excited too. Yeah, it's good to see you, Erin. Have a wonderful day.
All right.